Manager of Public Programs here at the MFA. The City Talks allows us to connect deeper to current exhibitions or our collections to issues that are impacting the city socially, culturally, and politically. For this program, we've had the pleasure of collaborating with the Bay State Banner and highlighting these wonderful artists who were featured in their virtual art gallery. We want to thank the Boston Foundation for their support for this amazing series. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Ron Mitchell, publisher and editor of the Bay State Banner, making his way to the stage.
Thank you, thank you. Hi. So I want to thank all of you for coming. And this is our first Virtual Art Gallery Roundtable, sponsored by the Bay State Banner. So I want to thank all of you for participating. Somebody's got a little ring. Not me, okay. It's in one of those bags. Oh, aqua. Okay, well, so we don't use, we are tight for time today because we have some wonderful artists to talk to. I want to thank everybody for coming. We at the Bay State Banner, myself and Andre Stark, we are new owners. Today is the 1-year anniversary of our purchase of the paper. So, thank you, thank you. It's been a wonderful year. We closed our deal on on February 28th. And then we took over March 1st. So this is kind of an extra day in the middle. So it's kind of weird. It's like an anniversary with an extra anniversary and an anniversary. And this is a wonderful place to spend it. We are so happy that we've been able to do the virtual art gallery with some African-American artists who are at the top of their game and the top of the field and who have been doing it for centuries. Not centuries, what am I saying? They've been studying art from the centuries and they've been doing it for decades. They've been doing it for decades. And I'm really honored that they were kind enough to work with us at the Bay State Banner and share their art. Andre and I's mantra when we took over the paper was that we wanted to share the good news and the challenges. And African-American art is the pure joy of our people. It lifts us up, it keeps us going, and in an environment where you have to take the good with the bad, it's always important to take the good. And when it comes from artists like these, it is beyond good. It is beautiful, it is love, it is art, it is embrace, it is power, it empowers us as a people. So thank you guys for what you create. There are a couple minor folks to thank, not minor folks, a couple folks to thank. First and foremost, of course, the Museum of Fine Arts. The Museum of Fine Arts, Boston Museum of Fine Arts, has been a supporter of the Bay State Banner Virtual Art Gallery from our inception. They sponsored us the first month, and they offered us this wonderful space and this opportunity to have this event as part of their City Talks program. So I want to thank them for inviting us in and working with us to have this wonderful event. And I also want to thank the City of Boston and Segun Edewudo and Mayor Wu. They are sponsoring the virtual art gallery in the paper for the next 3 months, so I want to thank them as well. And without any further ado, I want to hand it off to the wonderful Lamerchi Frazier. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. I want to first congratulate Ron and the Bay State Banner, NIA Media, and the collaboration of the MFA for making this conversation possible tonight. So could we give them a round of applause for putting this together? Rare indeed. Our question tonight is why are African Americans, Black artists especially, so underrepresented in the interest of the Western art canon, its institutions that continue undeniably in their connection to the history of slavery and colonialism. Addressing a gathering of Black artists in 1970, meeting to map their way forward in a conference called Confab, one of the leading Black artist voices of the Harlem Renaissance through civil rights and the Black arts movement, artist Elizabeth Catlett, whose works are collected by this MFA, said to the Black artists gathered, "You will have to have your own institutions, your own exhibitions, your own galleries, your own museums, because mainstream museums will not show your work." Since that time, Organizations and institutions like the National Conference of Artists, the National Center of African American Artists, Spiro, Obasi, Riusi, Afrocobra, AMARP, have had the necessity to organize Black artists to intentionally, intellectually, collectively, and unapologetically showcase the power of their existence and their work. While I was in the United Kingdom for my own exhibit this summer, I visited the Tate Modern Museum of Arts, which housed a gallery, 3 actual galleries of African diasporic photographs, African descended people, and the theme was beauty. I also had the opportunity to visit the Victoria and Albert Museum, and when I went there, I was met in the courtyard with a 30-foot bronze sculpture of a young Black woman dressed in athletic sweats and Nike sneakers as she towered over every visitor that came into that museum. The sculptor was a Black artist, Thomas Paine. He said of his work that this was his disruption of everything that has been. His name is actually Thomas Price, I'm sorry. He had also sculptures inside that museum. Among the bust of the expected Greco-Roman sculptures were his sculptures of nappy-headed Black men and women that were familiar to us and why we're having that conversation today. It was that experience that let me know, as these exhibits serve to interrupt colonial narratives of these institutions that have been considered very traditional, very conservative, that it is proved what is a global conversation and paradigm shift that challenges the racialized perspective of a dominant Western art canon to a lens where Black art occupies the persistent space of visual democracy and visual justice. Tonight, befitting that we are here in the MFA, in the Museum of Fine Arts, one of the oldest institutions of art in the United States, as institutions respond and reckon with this issue, triggered hypersensitivity by the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, our conversation tonight will journey us through art practitioners' perspectives as they participate in this moment, where the dominant culture habitually hides or rejects Black voice. These Western institutions of art are responding, or not, to the demands of the Black community to reflect the Black world's demographics and culture, to feature works in its collections, reflect in their curatorial staff, display the rarely exhibited visual stories of race and representation that exist within their walls, in their collections. Black artists now redefine art in these institutions. We are here to talk about the amazing works of some of these artists, not only local, but also national and global in their scope. Importantly, we will discuss their contributions of experience and power that turn the dynamics of how African-descended people are read and seen, away from the projected historical forgottenness, away from the frame of ugliness, conditions of whiteness, what Toni Morrison terms as the white gaze of colonial institutions. Tonight, they will share their thoughts about their relationships to these institutions of art as they move us through the African aesthetic of beauty in their work. Are you ready? All right. Let's open our eyes and our ears. I am delighted to introduce them to you. I do want to say, regrettably, photographer Hakeem Rakib will not be joining us tonight. However, we honor his work and his brilliance, and we hope he will be well represented by what you see and hear tonight. Robert Freeman is a teacher and artist who has exhibited nationally and internationally for over 40 years. His works are included in numerous collections, including the National Center of African American Artists, Boston Public Library, the Cordova Museum, and the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. He has served as an advisor for the MFA and currently is an art commissioner for the city of Boston. Robert's work appears outside Governor Maura Healey's office and is featured in the movie American Fiction. Ekwa Holmes, a Roxbury native who is the recipient of several honors, including the coveted Coretta Scott King Award for Book Illustration in 2018 and 2019. Ekwa recently exhibited her work at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, and currently serves as Commissioner and Vice Chair of the City of Boston Arts Commission. Last but not least, Paul Goodnight, Chicago-born and Roxbury raised.
The man.
Paul Goodnight's work has been featured in such films as Ghost and Gone, Baby Gone, and on such television programs as Seinfeld and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He received his BFA and an honorary MFA from Mass College of Art. Now, I will ask each artist in turn to further introduce themselves and tell us about their work and what drives them to be an artist in this time. Robert?
Thank you, Lamar. Is this on?
Oops.
Hello, hello?
Check. Check.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you, Lamerci. I really appreciate the introduction, but I also appreciate the wonderful interview that you did a couple of days ago for the Bay State Banner. And I'd like to thank the Bay State Banner for inviting us all here. And I'd certainly like to welcome all of you. About 41 years ago, I painted a painting called Black Tie. My wife and I went to a black tie dinner party, and we came in a little late. And so everybody at the party, or everyone at the table, stopped what they were doing, looked up, and just stared at us. It felt like the music stopped, and people stopped dancing even. I mean, it was the most uncomfortable feeling that I had. I returned to my studio, and I said, you know, I want to make a painting that makes the viewer feel a little bit uncomfortable, like the discomfort that we felt. And I wanted the painting to represent something that I think we all might feel when we come into circumstances that are rather new to us. So I painted the painting Black Tie. My wife and I, for 1 year, we took that painting and several other paintings to almost every gallery on Newbury Street. Now, this is back in 1981, and most of the galleries were not on in the district, the Ink Block district, but they were really on Newbury Street. And every gallery on Newbury Street, oh, this went, okay. Every gallery on Newbury Street had one day a month where they opened for artists to come in to show work personally. You could send slides, but it wasn't really good enough. So my wife would drive the U-Haul van, and we won't even talk about how it got stuck in one of the parking lot roofs. I would take these giant paintings. Black Tie was 7 by 5 feet. I would take these giant paintings out and into the galleries, and every single gallery, each time, said no. we have an audience. We don't have anyone that might appreciate
Check.
this. Okay, can you hear? Yes, okay. That's much better, okay. Each gallery denied us entrance into their shows or anything really to do with their galleries. For 1 year, we continued to do this. I took a show in an alternate gallery called the Chapel Gallery in Newton. And that Chapel Gallery also exhibited black tie. And the arts editor for the Globe magazine, Christine Timmons, put black tie on the front page of the Arts Review. Every gallery on Newbury Street next day called. And we said no. We were fortunate enough to have said yes to the Wendell Street Gallery and the Clark Gallery. And the black tie painting was sold at the Newton Chapel Gallery, and it was bought by a family, Newell and Kate Flather, who donated the black tie to the Museum of Fine Arts. And the Museum of Fine Arts has just loaned the painting to our governor, Maura Healey. So it has a happy ending. And I don't know how many of you out there are artists, but I just wanted to say that it was really the alternative gallery that really made the difference. And I would press all of the young artists to do what I did, and certainly go to the galleries that you want represent you, but also to look to the alternative galleries. Thank you.
Fabulous. Éclair. Thank you, Bob.
That was a great story. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out. I see so many friends and family members out there. I'm just happy to be with you all, and I want to thank the Bay State Banner for my interview with Lamerchi, which was fabulous. We could have gone on for an hour more, and to have a chance to talk to you about what the art life is in this town. So I feel like I was born in a very lucky year. I was born in 1955, but that was also the year that Emmett Till was murdered. That was the beginning of the Montgomery bus boycott, so it was a very auspicious year for Black Americans. 13 years later, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated and the streets of Boston lit up. I feel like 1968 was also the beginning of the Black Arts mural movement here in Boston. So you had Gary Rickson and Dana Chandler not asking for walls, but claiming walls to express the voice of the people, which was not being heard downtown. Today, as we walk around Boston, we see murals everywhere, and we're going to be seeing more and more, as it should be. But there was a time when that was a revolutionary act, and it left a deep impression on many young minds. I think Paul, myself, there are several other artists who I've heard say, I saw those murals and I knew I wanted to be an artist. So art does have a tremendous impact on young people. Art does save lives. Art does change minds, changes movements, changes governments, and it is incredibly powerful. What I want to say in this room, as I look at these massive paintings, these skillfully rendered portraits, is that if this were my gallery, my kings and queens would be, I made a list. There would be a portrait of Elma Lewis on this wall. There would be a portrait of Mel King on this wall. There would be a portrait of Leon Braithwaite on this wall. You all may not know him. He was a framer who took his work to Newbury Street and was told no, but who made your frames? And he had made them himself, and he started his business from those Newbury Street shops. My third grade teacher would be on this wall because she's the one that said to my mother, hey, I think your daughter could be an artist. And this was at a time when that's not what people wanted their kids to be. We wanted doctors, lawyers, even secretaries and nurses, but not artists. I mean, weren't they all crazy? Would they ever leave home? Would they ever make money? Mel Miller would be on this wall, the first publication that ever printed any ink about me, and probably about Paul and many other people here through the work of Kay Bourne. So seeing the tradition continue with you, Ron, is just amazing.
Ashe.
The Abdulhalik family of a Nubian Notion would be on this wall. A family of 10 siblings and 2 incredible parents who had a vision to bring Africa to the streets of Roxbury. So I became an artist, but I didn't become an artist on my own. It was because of the energy and the flow of the people that I was around. And I would also add that Paul Goodnight would be on this wall because, come on now, we went to college together, and after college we started a business, Color Circle Art Publishing, because like Elizabeth Catlett, we understood that we had to start our own institutions and keep them going. And the Black community supported those little home shows we did. We traveled across the country. We did art decor. We did all kinds of things because we couldn't afford to wait for the institutions to be ready for us. So okay, 15 seconds, great. And I just want to thank my parents because I feel like, you know, the beginning of me is with them for supporting me, for wanting to be something that nobody else wanted me to be. And I'm just happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ekwa. Watch it now,
I guess it's my turn, huh? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know where to start. Actually, I asked if I would go last, but then after they got finished talking, I wish I went first.
You can do it.
But anyway, I actually started the drawing and painting as a way of communicating. I came back from Vietnam and had a major speech impediment. And I saw this mural that Gary Rickson did. It was called Africa is the Beginning. And I really wanted to get in touch with this guy because I didn't know what that really meant. After talking with Gary, I knew that I didn't understand a word he said. He said, "You won't be gypped in Egypt." I said, "What?" And, you know, the more I talked with him, the more I got a feeling that he was in another stratosphere that I wasn't. But it was important for me to continue. You can't hear me?
Yeah, it's going in. Try that one.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? So it was important for me to be really revealing. Coming back from Vietnam, I then turned to heroin because I had to cope. And I would stand there, look at that mural for hours, and said that's what I wanted to do. We, Aqua, many, Omo Boale, there's a group of us we called the Black Artists Union. Napoleon Jones Henderson came to us and said, "We are going to go to the National Conference of Artists." Is this working?
We'll give you an extra minute.
Yeah. What Napoleon did was introduced us to a group of artists that I had never seen before, never knew the power of artwork, the image, the very power. And John, Biggers, who I befriended, and he then became my mentor. He would say things that really solidly made me feel as though what I was doing was valuable. He would say, this is one of the quotes that stays with me. He says, your job is what you get paid for, but your calling is what you're made for. And that sealed it. I met with John, Elizabeth Catlett. We was down in Brazil because they wanted me to do a piece on the Sisters of the Boa Morte. The Sisters of the Boa Morte was the first group of women of the Western Hemisphere that organized themselves and became free. And they're celebrated today. So, I mean, after being amongst royalty, and what I consider really royalty, I knew that the content of what I was doing had to change because I was doing it just doing it. I met with groups of Afro-Cobra, and Afro-Cobra really sealed the deal with Nelson Stevens, Mary the Pillars, and there's more than I can really think of right now, but there's a group of them. There's a fellow who is missing here, and I really wanted to acknowledge him. Larry Pierce is an incredible artist. Larry just got out of the hospital, and fortunately, he's on the mend. And I admire him, his thinking, his way of developing a piece, along with Lamerchi and Sister Dear here. I enjoyed the fact that this has been, I've had many more good days than I've had bad. And it's because of the art. One of the things that I would like to see, I only got 15 seconds. Oh, Jesus. I would love to see an institute that would teach comic books, Bobby Stowe, comic novels, children's book, Aqua Holmes, G. Clay's and Silk Screens with Hakeem, photography, business of art, the gallery space, and contracts, consignments, sculptures, tapestries, all of these. I'm supposed to wrap it up now. But all of these things. I'll have another chance to talk. Thank you. But I appreciate you all for coming out. One of the things that is very vital and important.
So now that we've heard from these artists about their work, I want to ask them another question. I will ask them if you would tell us, what does it mean to have your art in these traditional spaces that are addressing the shift or not of a dominant narrative of colonialism? What does it matter to you to have had Black art in these spaces in general?
Yeah, I don't mind trying to answer that question. When my wife and I, when I came here first in 1967, one of the things, I met my wife on Commonwealth Avenue, and we've been married for about 54 years. I hope I got that right. The very first place that we went when we met, the MFA. And in 1967, there was one African-American picture that we saw, and we went to every room in the MFA. And it was a Horace Pippin, a wonderful artist, but that was the only image. Now, I can say, because of the hard work of a lot of people here in the museum, that in 2007, the Heritage Fund was founded by Pam and Bob Adams with a grant from NEA, which bought over 380 some odd pieces of African American or artists of color into this museum. Also, John Axelrod collection of 67 pieces in this museum. And I am a member of the collections committee, and each collections committee meeting, 4 or maybe even 5 pieces sometimes are brought into our collection here at the MFA. So times have really changed. Fast enough? No. But they have changed, and they are changing. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, great. I want to say that I had a show here. And as a little girl who used to come to Saturday classes here with my mom, I never even dreamt that. That was too big a dream for me. I had no idea what an artist was going to do to survive in the world. I just knew that my soul, was fulfilled when I was drawing or painting or doing those kinds of things, and I did not want to not have that. So I see that there are efforts of repair. Lamerchi and I were talking the other day, and I love that term, repair. Before my show here, there was a group of students from Dorchester School who came here and felt very unwelcome. So a moment of pride for me was to have Golden, my little 8-year-old girl with pigtails, on the front of this museum, saying to the world, you are welcome here, we belong here, and this is ours too. So I see a movement, and like Elizabeth Catlett, though, we have to build our own as well. We're part of this, and we're part of other things as well.
How do I feel about having my art in spaces? I feel good about having my art anywhere. I always believe that my art is not mine. It belongs to whomever would like to purchase it. It belongs to the world. They always said that he who controls the image controls the mind. You can see that in the Vatican, that it was called one of the greatest Catholic organizations in the world, and it's still considered that. But the people who really purchased our artwork, and I have a book here, and it's called To Conserve a Legacy: American Art from Historical and Black Colleges and Universities. Those are the people who believed that art was very important to the institution and to the education of art. I also want to mention one person that we missed, and he is the architect. He is the saint of promoting and developing our art, was Barry Gaither.
Absolutely.
He's done more for art, for Black and brown folk in terms of him talking about it, developing it, and promoting it. He even has a museum that he's really trying to resurrect. He's very important in my life and most of the artists in this room's life. So I want to give him that kind of credit, and I believe that we need to have more and more people who have been advocates of art, and so we can keep this thing going. And I really would love to see an institution for the visual artist. That's it.
Thank you. I really
In
appreciate
Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan.
very specific. I really appreciate that Edmund Barry Gaither was mentioned in this conversation. He has been the director of the Museum of the National Center for African American Artists since 1969. And so now you see why in my introduction I said Black artists now redefine art in these institutions. So with that, I'd like to bring up the question and answer period that Ron will be conducting.
Okay, there we go. That's better. Thank you. So we're going to start a question and answer section, but I just want to take a quick minute. Go to thebaystatebanner.com if you haven't, and go to the virtual art gallery and take a look at our purchase portal. Because all the money, when you buy the limited edition giclées from any of these artists who allow us to sell their art online, you support the artist directly and you also support the banner. So I want to encourage everybody when you get a chance to do that. Just a little shameless plug for the... Okay, there you go. So now we're going to start with a Q&A. Is your mic on, Colin? So it's a chance, which is really important. When I first talked to Paul about this, about doing the virtual art gallery, he said it was really important that we had the opportunity for different artists to talk with other artists and share. So this is the Q&A section. So hands up, and Colin has a mic. He's passing it around, and hopefully, check. Up, go.
Hello.
There we go. So anybody question for the artist? Okay. We'll start with that young lady in the back, just because she's closer. You'll get.
Check. Hi. I have a question for every artist on the panel, but the first question I have is for someone who's really defining themselves and working on, the language and visual lexicon that they want to use to basically change the world with their art. What got you established in the art world? Like, what motivated you to really strike into it the way that you did? I'm really curious. Anyone and everyone.
Is it on?
Check. Okay. So let's try this one. It's on.
My motivation was, it's a question. Do? Huh?
Okay. Second. Do you want
Hello.
the hot?
This mic works.
Okay.
This mic works.
Okay. All right.
This mic works.
Yeah. I think my motivation.
Check. This one works.
One, two. Yeah.
All right.
Hey.
My motivation is to carry on the legacy of the artists that went before me, and to really recognize how important it is to be an image maker. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is that how do we make art real been going up around this city. It tattooed this city with pro-black and what's I have been learning about colors, about these murals, and every one of these that are going up. I would love to see it open. Only these murals that are being done by these young folks are tattooing our legacy. I would love to see a book on to preserve those murals because I know that Percy, what's his name? Percy Mark, things right. He's lost 3 of the murals that he's done. I've done a mural that has been also famed or whitewashed. There's many, many art murals that really tell the story of our lives. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to preserve what we've already done in some way, some fashion, some form. And I believe that that's going to happen.
Great. Thank you, Paul. We have one more question over here.
First of all, I want to honor you and thank you for bringing Roxbury to the forefront. Lamerci, Paul, Ekwa, you're amazing. And I want to say 2 things. I just came back from New York, and I went to the MFA, to the Metropolitan, and they have the Harlem Renaissance exhibit. Go see it. Lamerci, they do the international piece. They do the historical piece. They have also taken a gentle crack at protests, and all of that is exhibited at this museum. So if you haven't gone, go. The other thing I want to say is thank you for mentioning Gary and Barry, because they were the pioneers. Gary is my daughter's godfather. And I remember when he started painting. So bless you for bringing his name forward. So my question to you is, why do you think the interest is there now, at this point in time in history of Black art?
Check. Dave.
I'm not sure I have an answer for that. I have just a few sentences to the person who asked the other question. And Barry Gaither, I heard it said beautifully that art is a compulsion, that we can't stop doing this. We don't have a choice in this. And if we are to really look at why we do it, it might actually go away. But we do it from our heart and our minds. And it doesn't answer your question because I'm not exactly sure why now is now. But I think it's because the young artists and the older artists have come together and they have pushed the institutions and the galleries in a way that they have responded.
Thank you. Malika, you have a question over there?
We have a question over here. Hi there. My question is for Mr. Goodnight and Ms. Holmes. So I'm curious to hear from you. What is your legacy in art? And I'll tell you the reason why I ask. So I ask out of ignorance, right? Not knowing a lot about what people think of as art, right? So when I was an adolescent and a young adult, Paul Goodnight's art, it was a household name. I mean, people were having art parties, right? I mean, his art was everywhere, right? And I did not know another artist name, like as far as a household name, honestly, until I came across Miss Aqua Holmes, and she became an art teacher of mine. I participated in some community art events that she participated in. And so I'm just really curious because now I don't know what the space looks like. I know there are some photographers and people that do various, mixed media in their own little pockets. But as far as like art as a scene, as a community, right? As a tapestry for us, I mean, what does that look like? And so I'm just a little curious as far as in your own words, what do you think your legacy is, right? What was your contribution? Because I don't see it as just back there in the past when I used to see your art everywhere, right? I don't see it as just you, like when I go to a play and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Aqua, or oh wow, she's illustrated another book. Not just that, but on an ongoing basis, what is your legacy? What do you feel like your contribution is, and how is it like moving forward?
Thank you for that question. You brought up the paint nights, which you've come to so many of them and done some beautiful work. But starting with myself, I feel like I am part of Elma Lewis's legacy. So she planted a seed years and years and years ago. She actually taught my mother also. And that is still alive in me. And when I'm doing those paint nights and I'm dealing with those 5 and 6 and 7 and 16 and 60-year-olds and encouraging them, I don't know what's going to bloom. You just plant the seeds. To me, that's my most important legacy. And children's literature allows me another platform, because if you think about it, we're still reading The Snowy Day. We're still reading Good Night Moon. We're still reading Make Way for Ducklings. And Black illustrators and authors are contributing to the canon and making new classics that our great-great-grandchildren will read to their children. So I consider this a big part of my legacy, but kindness, encouragement, art making, those are the seeds that I want to plant wherever I go, and I pray, and I hope, and I believe they will bloom.
I don't know if my legacy is mine, to be honest with you. All I know is that whatever is read is fine. But what I would love to see is that we do some mentorship. And I think that's what holds our legacy. We have people that we communicate with, the different artists. That's what holds the legacy. You have great teachers. That's what your legacy. Loved ones who support you. That's legacy. Travel. And last, camaraderie with different artists. Not to be on any level, but the same level as the people who are creating that you are creating that with. I'm doing a piece with Frederick Douglass sculpture that's going to be down in Frederick Douglass Square. That's part of the legacy. It's history. We're doing also another piece with Crispus Attucks, whom many people didn't know that Crispus Attucks was half Native American and half African, and he was enslaved, and what he did and who he was, and that will be down there. That's part of the legacy. But my legacy is not mine, determined by me. It's determined by the actions that come out of it, the younger people that we basically hope to groom as I was groomed. And that's what I would love to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this is not the first of our this is the first of our roundtables, but it will not be the last. So unfortunately, I have to say that the time is up for these 3 wonderful artists, and we're going to swap out to our next round of wonderful younger artists, Shea Justice, Rob Stull, and James Perry. So thank you guys, and
Thank you
a big
so
round of
much.
applause for
Thank you for this rich
Paul Goodnight,
sharing.
Bob Freeman, and Aqua Holmes. Thank you so much.
That was so dynamic and rich. Thank you so much for the sharing that you did with us. Let us know some things that we did not know about you and how you think and feel and function and what makes you tick. So thank you so much,
And I know there were a lot
Robert
of...
Freeman, Paul Goodnight, and Equa Holmes. Thank you.
And I know there are a lot of movers and shakers in here. If any of you have a space and would like to talk to the banner about hosting one of these wonderful events, please don't leave without giving us your card or giving us your information. As I said, this is the beginning, not the end, and we want to just keep doing this throughout the community. So if any of you want to lend your space or share any ideas or anything, we are so receptive. And thank you so much. I'm going to hand it back off to Lamerchi. And
Okay.
thank you, guys.
Well, we have just heard what is a part of the legacy, the sister who has asked that question, our generational wealth as we build the treasure of Black art. We've had the opportunity now to reflect and have some discussion and questions from the first panel. And we will segue to the second panel with the inspiring notion to see how they have retained their identities over time. Black artists have been involved with not only the quest to be heard and to be seen, but to continue what has been started and relocated from the African continent from the 1600s forward in this country. So despite the fact that they shouldn't have had to, Black artists have set a new standard in these institutions for representation. We are ready to learn again from those who are sitting here, and so let's do it. And without any further interruptions, we advance this power-packed conversation to our second panelist. I want to introduce them. Shea Justice is an art teacher for more than 30 years. He's acquired his teaching degree from Boston University. His work, History is No Mystery, a sobering series of collages and drawings that place American racism in sharp relief against the backdrop of the US Constitution, was exhibited at Boston's Fountain Street Gallery and other places. Rob Stoll is an accomplished illustrator, designer, and creator of comic books. He has worked for every major publisher in the comic book industry. He is the founder of Ink on Paper, a production studio specializing in illustration for comic books, magazines, and print-based media. And he is a partner in True Elements Publishing, LLC. His projects include Spider-Man Adventures, Iron Man, Wolverine, and New Mutants for Marvel Comics. James Perry is a native of Boston with fans. He is the founder of J. Perry Fine Arts and serves as vice chair of the Boston Arts Academy Alumni Foundation. His work was on display at the 2023 Faye Chandler Art Exhibition. He is the recipient of many honors, including the 2023 Imani Award for Visual Arts. And now I'll ask, as I did the first panel, each artist in turn, let us know more about yourselves and about your work and what drives you to be an artist in this time. And I'd like to start with Shea.
I thought if I was in the middle, I wouldn't go first. What motivates me? Timing started. I want to make sure I don't mess it up. All right. Keep watching the time. What motivates me? First off, I'm glad you mentioned the constitutional pieces that I've been currently working on that contrast the past with the present on the Constitution and trying to hold America accountable for what America claims it is in terms of the land of the free. Currently, those pieces are hanging up in the Hyde Park Library on exhibit until the end of March, thanks to Tommy Seegers, who's one of the greatest curators I could have asked for to help put it up. So I'm inviting folks to come check that out when they get a chance. It's at the Hyde Park Library. What motivates me? Louder? I'm good? What motivates me? Okay, my family, number one. My family, my late mother, I love her to death, and I'm always carrying this with me to carry her with me and her spirit with me. My father, my aunts, uncles, cousins, and I come from a huge family in Virginia, Harrisonburg. Usually when I say that, one person will go, yeah, no one said it, but what motivates me ever since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated with superheroes and comics like she was mentioning that Rob liked, but when I went to college, I got more and more into history, particularly African-American history, our stories, our realities, our experiences, many of which have been lost. And if you look at what's going on now currently, many of which of our stories are being slowly eroded and erased, particularly in places like Florida and Texas and certain other places. I'm fascinated by those stories. They mean a lot to me. They're important to me. And I think they would mean a lot to younger people, obviously the younger generations that are coming up. I'm honored and blessed to be in the presence of someone like Equa Holmes or Paul Goodnight or James Perry or a Rob Stowe or a pro-Black Gibbs, where these stories are going to still exist in some way, shape, or form, considering the backdrop of those that are trying to erase them. So for me, I look at it as I'm doing my part. If you need something about Paul Robeson, if he's not going to do it, or we can do it, or he's going to do it, Paul Robeson will still exist. Josephine Baker will still exist. You can keep trying to whitewash or erase these people, but they exist. So that motivates me in everything I do in my work. I grew up in the tradition of Paul Goodnight, but also of Dana Chandler. Dana Chandler's murals all over Roxbury when I grew up in Grove Hall, they were so inspiring to me, and I wanted to do that. And ever since then, it has been the trajectory of where I've gone as an artist and as an individual and as a human being. I just continue the Dana Chandler trajectory of our stories, our realities, our experiences. They matter. Black lives matter. And I'm going to reflect that in my work no matter what. So that's, if that answers your question.
Wow. I am so happy to be here and involved in this. What a tremendous honor to be represented collectively with Paul, Equa, Robert, Shay, James, and those not represented here, Larry Pierce. You know, even Lamerchi yourself, you're part of the virtual art gallery. But how do you follow these heroes? I mean, these are true heroes. They've always been of mine. When I think about how I found my way to being expressive visually, I have to take it back to my youth. And the examples, it wasn't that I didn't feel we belonged in spaces like this. It was, as a young child, you need something visually to connect and identify with that gives you confirmation that this is a lane you can travel or this is a space that you can exist in. And I needed that confirmation as a kid. And if I didn't get it, I was a kid. You know, I didn't dwell on it. But I didn't consider that. I didn't see myself in certain spaces. But those examples were clearly expressed in the way that I came up. And my parents specifically, you know, their appreciation for the arts, their backgrounds. My father, the late Donald Stowe, architect, he was the owner of the oldest black-owned architectural firm in this part of the country. And later partner, David Lee. Incredible history that's here, right here within this city. But what that did for me was I saw myself and my father clearly. Okay, this is something that black people do. We're architects. We're also visual artists. And that confirmation came from the work that was ordained throughout the houses I grew in growing up. You know, works like Paul Goodnight, Renee Neblett, Barbara Ward, Alan Rowan Crite. Did I say Renee Neblett? Yeah. But and so on and so on. And to me, I identified that as success. And that's what I wanted to aspire to. I didn't think about here because I hadn't seen that confirmation. You know what I mean? I saw it on the walls of my home. And I said, I wanted to aspire to have my work hanging on somebody's wall one day. And it wasn't until later, until I got a little older, and I started to question things. We say, okay, you know, we don't know, like this gallery here, we don't know that we belong until we start seeing reflections of ourselves in not just the effort, and not just the work, but the effort. So I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt at an early age that this is what I wanted to do. And I had access by way of my parents to these amazing artists that were right there in the community. And I'm a huge fan of everybody represented up here. You fast forward a number of years, I'm a graduate of the School of the Museum of Fine Arts across the street. And I, along with Pro Black, we were the first two African-American artists in residence in the history of the MFA. And I myself participated in the Basquiat exhibit, Writing the Future, Basquiat and the Hip Hop Generation. And my work was featured at the tail end of the exhibit, and I did tribute homages to some of the artists that were represented in the exhibit. And I'm a product of hip hop. You know, I identify with that era, the post-'80s era. Basquiat's name was put 30 seconds. Basquiat's name was put on the front of that to get the attention, but then it really shined a light on everybody else who was there and responsible for moving the culture forward. So it's an honor to be represented in that way. And 3 of those images were put up at banners in the entryway on Huntington Ave to represent the exhibit. And that was the first time a local artist had been featured on the facade of the MFA.
Amazing, amazing.
And you know who the next one was? Ekwa Holmes.
Okay, thank you, Rob. James?
So first of all, I think this is crazy that I'm here. This is a bit surreal. But I honestly, before I get into my story, anyone that knows me well knows that I'm a deeply religious person. So I always think that success is in 2 components. One is from above, and secondly is from your friends and your family that support you. And I see so many folks in this room, Paul, my wife, my brother-in-law, my brother, all my, my man Lance, Taurus, these beautiful faces that are here, patrons of mine, Dolly, that allow me to do what I do. Advocates and family and friends and God, I think, is what really allows you to be in this kind of place. And that's the reason why I create. So, but a little bit of my backstory, I'm kind of new to the game. Everyone here is a little bit more established than me. But I guess my story really started here in these museum halls, walking through these halls with my father and my mother, and walking in these kinds of galleries. And I would create from a very young age. It actually was weird. It started with dinosaurs. I used to draw a lot of dinosaurs. Still do. But I looked at these faces in these galleries, and they didn't connect with me. So as I grew older, I realized that why can't I draw our people in these beautiful pieces? And what I did over many, many years, and actually many people don't know this, but Shay was my high school art teacher.
And, like, well, damn, how old is he? How old is he?
But Shay actually, Shay and people like Paul and many of the folks that are on this panel, it always encouraged me to create, no matter what. And what I did was I challenged myself over time to make sure that I could produce images that reflected the people that I saw in my everyday life, my family, friends. So, you know, again, I'm trying to still process all of this. It's wonderful to see all you all's faces. And also, folks, I know we've said this before, but shout out to Ron and his team for what they've done. And many thanks to the Museum of Fine Arts for having us here in this space. And again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here and supporting all of us.
Okay. Thank you, James. Now on to our second question. I will ask each of you to tell us, what does it mean to you to have your art in these traditional spaces that are addressing the shift or not of a dominant narrative of colonialism? What does it matter to you to have had Black art in these spaces in general? Some of you have touched on that already, but you may have other comments that will take us deeper into what this means to you. So I think I'll start with Shay again and ask him to lead us into as reluctant as he is. It's okay.
What does it mean to have art in a colonial space? I don't know yet, because I haven't been in a situation where my work has been in a colonial space where I felt it has the impact that I would like it to have.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
All right. I know what I would like to happen. Now, I was part of the living room, guest living room host thing over at the Gardner Museum some time ago, and at the Cordova, where they were doing like slide presentations of my work and things like that. But if anyone really knows the sum total of a lot of my work, I've been working on the Scroll project for several years. I'd like that to be in a space probably the size of an airport, from the beginning to the end, telling the story about this war in Afghanistan and how it has affected us politically, culturally, socially, economically, and as much as possible, the innocent human beings that have died over this thing that has been made. I've continued working on it, addressing the issues of how our country is slowly, in some ways, and I don't want to bring everyone down, but descending almost into a level of fascism from what it once was or what it was aspiring to be. The term hope and change seems like that's a long time ago. I want to have a narrative that talks about it from the beginning to the end, and as a Black man in America, force the viewer to have to listen and read and understand. This is where he's coming from 20, 30 years across. If you're down to really listen to it, not reduce me to some sort of soundbite, he angry, he militant, he a troublemaker, or what have you, go on that journey with me to see where we were and where we're heading. Because we have a lot more in common than you think.
Thank you.
A lot more in common. So I've had the opportunities to be in exhibits, and I'll continue to do that. But I've yet to have be in a kind of exhibition where I'm like, this is what I want it to be, to have the kind of impact that I'm hoping that it will be.
I'm sure that's in your future.
Thank you.
Very, very close future. James?
I guess I can talk from past experiences that the impact of having Black art in colonial spaces. One exhibit that impacted me as a very young man was coming to this museum and seeing Dr. Bigger's work in this museum. Please don't tell anybody I skipped school to see that. But it was worth it because Paul was there and he introduced me to Dr. Biggers, and to see everyone come out, see Dana Chandler there. And growing up in Boston, we didn't have those kinds of exhibits in these spaces. So it was strange and bizarre to see our people, and I mean, John made giant works. They were bigger than this, you know, bigger than the stuff that you see around. They were massive works, and they showed the beauty and the elegance of our people. And, you know, seeing, you know, the museum now has Kehinde here. They have many works. Coming to the museum a few years back when Pro-Black and Rob Stull's stuff was here, and, you know, walking out of the museum when those banners were in the columns, and a young Black boy grabs his mom and he says, "Mom, is this our museum now?" That's when the job is done, and that's how it's impacted me.
Okay, thank you.